First off, thank you all so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed all of the fantastic presentations, and thank you to our finalists for the wonderful pitches. I'm Margot Zuckerman. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of the Dells. We're so excited to walk you through some Q&A this evening.
And I'm Ashley Bakelmun, also she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of the Delta Emerging Leaders that put together this boost event for you tonight. So first of all, we wanted to say thank you to all the attendees. You're what makes this happen. And as the presentation said, in your inbox at 7 p.m., you'll be getting instructions for how to cast your vote. So make sure to do that. And this is your chance to ask questions of any of the finalists. So as we're getting teed up here, be sure to slide them into the Q&A feature in the Zoom. And the last point I'll make before we get started is the Delta Institute will be posting this on YouTube after the event. So if you do have trouble deciding, you can go back and watch it at any time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Margot for our first question.
Sure. Let's get started off with a quick round to all of our finalists tonight. So maybe going in order of who I see on my Zoom screen. And let's start with you.
It cut out a little bit. Who was the first person?
You were the first person, and the question was, what does success look like for you and your team?
Oh, success just looks like reaching as many people as possible in Chicago in order to lower the waste stream and the just spread that, lower the single-use waste that we see everywhere. It's just like clouding our world.
Definitely, thank you. Tessa, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I think that success for the Chicago Tool Library looks like borrowing tools and borrowing items, because we have a broad definition of what tools are, being as simple and easy and exciting and fun as buying things. So for us, if we're able to be in more neighborhoods and be as common and fun as buying new things, that is what success looks like to us.
Okay, I think our Wi-Fi, that might be our Wi-Fi is a little bit choppy, but if you guys have trouble hearing us, just let us know. We can repeat anything. Breck, why don't you take this one?
Sure, thank you. So success for Qilo would be continuing to build our software so we can really help people make informed decisions about their electricity usage, help people save money and reduce their carbon footprint, and really be able to expand beyond here in Chicago and in Northern Illinois into other states and really across the country.
Thank you. And last but not least, Vanessa.
Hi, success for community charging would be having a local close to home EV charger in every neighborhood of Chicago, so that there are ultimately no charging deserts and that there is at least a starting place with access to EV charging for the many people that could benefit from owning and operating an EV or using the charger as part of an EV ride sharing network. Uh-oh, you froze again.
Not a problem. While Margot is figuring a little bit about her Wi-Fi, I got a couple questions that I'd like to ask here. One is for Chicago Tool Library. What's your most popular tools and what do you need more of?
Popular is hard to define. We have a lot of tools that have very long wait lists, like our upholstery cleaners, because nobody wants to own one, but they really, really want to use one, especially after we've been stuck inside for 2 years. Everybody wants to clean their couch. But we also have things that are borrowed the most often, which is maybe things like clamps or power drills, or kind of more common things. And then what do we need more of? honestly, we don't need more of many things right now because we're pretty full. So at this point, we are interested in finding more space so that we can continue getting more things because we're pretty packed in there. But generally, like power tools, cleaning tools are very popular.
All right, all right. Margot, you back with us?
I think we made it back. Yes, so thanks
Okay.
for covering there for a second. Switch to the different Wi-Fi. I guess Ashley, do you wanna go for the next question?
Yeah, I'll jump in with a question for Community Charging Initiative. What other neighborhoods are you thinking of working with, and have you thought of working with any aldermen?
Yeah, so for our initial grant, we did all this outreach during COVID and after having done all these surveys. And so it was a matter of finding what are the sites that have the existing infrastructure in place, the host excitement and willingness, and the installation cost that the layout of the building happens to have. And we went with those, and they're awesome hosts. And so these are just these are just northwest, southwest, and south areas. So we are hoping to have a site host in every neighborhood. The next site we're looking at, though, is in Woodlawn at an environmental nonprofit, the Blacks and Green Green Living Room. So this boost grant would go towards building a community charger in their lot, and then the programming for the education and awareness that we would, of course, work directly with them to do. Our approach is to connect with the community-based groups in each neighborhood to help identify sites and kind of provide people the tools to go out and find a good community host. We have spoken with many aldermen who are interested and expressed that this is a model that could work as a pilot with the city or a pilot with ComEd if they want to fund it. We're working on grant funding from foundations right now, like the Keeling Prize. We want to minimize the risk to the host for putting up a charger as we wait for EV adoption to increase, and this also helps drive EV adoption. So for now, the aldermen are more people, if they're amenable to it, promoting when we build a charger, they send it out in their newsletter, or telling like local neighbors about it. So yeah, actually the 33rd Ward did a whole thing about us in their recent newsletter. And we're also working with Clean Cities Coalition and have a series of articles posted that they share in their newsletter to get EV drivers aware of where it is, and also just get local word of mouth. So yeah, we'll see what the city does with EV charging in the future with the passage of the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. There's awesome incentives eventually that will come out for building infrastructure. But for now, we're really kind of focused on teaming up with privately run organizations.
Yeah, that's great. We hope you get a lot more sites from those partnerships too.
Yeah, we have a big pipeline.
Great. Well, turn it over to Margot.
Sounds good. That's exciting to hear, and that reminds me, you just shared so much wonderful information. We'll definitely have you all, before the end of the night, share where we can find the latest updates on what you all are up to and what other things are out there. Jumping now, a question for Qilo. So what's your current outreach plan? How are you all going to spread the word and stand out from your competition?
Yeah, so within Northern Illinois, or even within the US, we certainly have some indirect competition, but the kind of service that we're currently providing, and certainly what we want to provide, is kind of stands out from the pack. Really, the state of Illinois, this hourly pricing program, ComEd, the kind of legislation that's happening, now the CEJA Act just passed, which is exciting news for us in particular. Illinois is really leading the way when it comes to energy consumer advocacy. So in terms of that's the competition piece. In terms of like doing outreach, we have connected with different like local environmental organizations. For example, I live in Edgewater. I'm connected to the Edgewater Environmental Coalition. As an example, Chicago Environmentalists, we have a relationship with. We've been in conversation with the Citizens Utility Board of Illinois, et cetera, et cetera. we've also have connected with different groups who are a great start for us, people who are already on hourly pricing, who have successfully used it to their advantage, including people who own EVs, because we can help them charge for less, not only charge for less, but also charge when electricity is cleaner and using less fossil fuels. So we found these people on Facebook. We've done some, this year we started growing our social media presence and have connected with some of those groups that are trying to find ways of like using electricity cheaper. So we have a hourly pricing discussion group that we're growing, has about 120 something members right now and continues to grow. So we're wanting to continue to connect with different like-minded organizations, certainly within Chicago and beyond, to continue to kind of spread the word about how you can use electricity better.
Great, thank you. That even makes me think there might be some partnerships amongst the four of you after this event is over. I'll move next to a question for Tinyshop. How do you think about sourcing your products? Where do you try to buy? Do you try to buy from responsible companies? And if anything, what would help make the purchasing process more waste-free?
Yeah, so down to just the beginning process of sourcing, I'm super thorough and thoughtful about every product. I say that because the product line, I probably have about 100 products on the site already, but it's a slow build because it is so important to me that it's an ethical company that I'm buying from. It's an ethical grower. They are who they say they are. Say it's an organic local farm, then I would try to communicate with them directly, not really just blindly purchasing. So the sourcing is really, really like utmost important, or of utmost importance to me. And right now, like today, I was on the phone with some toothbrush company, and I'm just going through like 10 different companies, talking to the owners, seeing which one would be the lowest impact carbon wise. So we'll see how long that one takes me, but it's just a really thoughtful process. But once it's on, I feel like I could back it. I have a lot of confidence in whatever I put on there and conviction, whatever that I offer. As far as from the waste standpoint, I try my hardest to work with the company directly to see first if there's a local option, but if working with the company directly to lower the waste that occurs with me receiving the product. So if I'm getting 50 pounds of grains, for example, and they only give it to, so if they are only giving it to companies like wholesalers in plastic, for example, I would make some sort of zero waste exchange. I would see if it's possible to do like a bucket exchange, or just kind of shift the mentality from just the beginning. I think it's really important. I mean, I'm a zero waste person through and through, and the bulk buying process is kind of cumbersome and it's difficult to really know what you're buying. So it's really important. I mean, I would go to bulk grocery stores myself and just try to look through the cabinets and see, how are they receiving these products? And for me, it was such a letdown to see, they're receiving these in small plastic bags. So how much waste diversion am I actually being a part of? So yeah, it's really thought out from the ground up, from sourcing and from the beginning. So
that's so cool to see the ripple effect, like both up and like down the supply chain too. I hadn't thought of all that. Cool to hear.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, there are a lot of good questions here.
Yeah, we might have you here till 9 p.m.
searching for one, maybe one for Vanessa. So the community charging initiative. You might have mentioned this in your first answer, but can you clarify or expand upon if your group is coordinating with the city of Chicago at all? And also if the new infrastructure bill will affect availability. I am not a policy buff, so if you know what the infrastructure bill is and can clarify, that also be really helpful for the audience, I'm sure.
Okay, so the City of Chicago, the Chicago Area Clean Cities Coalition and Department of Transportation actually published a map of charging deserts, which you can kind of see from the EV like maps that are already out there, but it was like an official awesome visual that they did. And so they have been, the folks that are at the DOT and at the city have been, I guess, kind of mentoring this all along, but we're not working with them officially. You know, we're building community owned infrastructure that's owned by the host, and with them signing an agreement to keep rates of charging affordable, provided at these hours of day. You know, if we're giving them this money to like minimize their risk, but also keep it low charging rates for the community. You know, I've had a lot of conversations with folks at the city, but I think a lot of them were waiting for the passage of the CEJA Act at the state level. Now that we have that, we're going to have up to 80% reimbursements for charging infrastructure eventually starting July 1st, but still we're having all these meetings with the Illinois Commerce Commission and just like figuring out how these agencies are going to implement it, who's going to implement it, what's the reimbursement process. We know, you know, it's, you know, it might be a thing where they open the floodgates, everyone applies and the funding is gone. So as a nonprofit, we are working, you know, with crowdfunding grants to build these. And we don't want to wait for that funding to happen. We are definitely telling our site hosts, hey, just so you know, we can provide X amount of money. I see that your installation is going to be a little bit higher. Do you still want to do it? Just so you know, starting July 1st, there is the potential for this incentive. And so far, two of our awesome hosts were like, no, I'll use your grant and then I'll cover the rest. Let's do this. So they're really excited about hosting this amenity for their neighborhood, as well as, you know, teaming up with the community to do the education and outreach. So anyway, I'm excited that City of Chicago is excited about EVs. There's a lot of awesome people that work there that have also like helped mentor me in coming up with this research that I did and then implementing. So, you know, it'll be exciting to see what Chicago does with their new EV readiness ordinance and also with the state funding. With the federal infrastructure bill, again, I am not waiting for that to pass and, you know, we'll see what happens, but it's awesome that at least we have the Illinois policy pass. That's going to really, of course, boost our installations as well as our network of contractors that we can refer people to, of course. And, you know, it'll be exciting whether or not the federal bill passes, because Illinois is not only having incentives for infrastructure, but also for used and new electric vehicle purchases. So demand will increase.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad you're not waiting. And I'm going to ask a similar question of Tessa. For the tool library, have you partnered with the city? And I might even build on that by asking, have other regions or cities been interested in your model and contacted you to see how they could implement something of their own?
Yeah, I wish we had partnered with the City of Chicago. We have not yet, although the Delta Institute really wonderfully included us in this year's waste strategy, which we were so excited about because, like we said in our pitch, the really exciting thing about the Chicago Tool Library is helping on the ground people adapt their day-to-day habits to think about, how could I not be buying something? How could I be borrowing? How could I be participating in like a true sharing economy instead of just like a, you know, capitalist consumption kind of mindset that we've all been trained to do. But as far as other communities and other governments, 100%, it is so cool. It's so exciting. There are public library systems across the country that have tool libraries as part of their public library system. I consult on different tool library projects almost every single week in cities around the country, which is so cool. Like the movement for tool libraries is happening, and it's really exciting to see where it's happening. There are for-profit models, there are nonprofit models, there are kind of these public library, government-based models. So tool libraries are only growing, we're not going away. And we're really excited to be the ones figuring out what works here in Chicago. We don't know what it looks like yet, but we're kind of staking it out and feeling it out. And we're always really responsive to our super huge, diverse community of users, which spans almost every single zip code in Chicago. So yeah, tool libraries are everywhere.
Yeah, that's great and very inspiring.
I had no idea. Now I'm excited to seek one out in every city I visit. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna pass it off to Tinyshop, and I think I have two maybe kind of quicker questions to answer. So the first question here is, do you have a general idea of how many times a jar would have to be used by a Tinyshop customer to have a carbon footprint equivalent to the replaced single-use item? So we're talking carbon footprint here. I'm not sure if there's any other impacts you'd like to speak to there. And then second, does Tinyshop see permitting and related fees lowering in the future, or are these fees that you imagine will be around forever? So curious to just kind of get your quick thoughts about those two questions.
The question about the carbon, how to make it carbon neutral. I don't have a finite figure. I do realize that there is waste associated with using glass, and you would have to use it a lot. To me, it's really about shifting the mentality and the culture of just how we view products, how we purchase products, the disposability of things. I think placing value on these products really kind of makes people think about waste in general. And Tinyshop also really focuses on local agriculture as well, and local makers. So when you're purchasing through the shop, you're really supporting not only like organic agriculture, for example, but you're supporting just so many other things. You're supporting the use of plastics we're trying to lower waste in plastic use in a larger scale, like I was talking about with wholesalers, for example. So I feel like it's just about that cultural shift and offering different solutions and like a larger vision. It's not really only about single-use waste. So I do think that whether or not it's completely, I feel like the impact is there. I feel like it is larger than a single-use jar. And in the future, in the short future, I want to expand that and use the sanitation infrastructure that we use at Tinyshop for reusable coffee cups and offer those throughout the city at coffee shops. So it's really just about setting that hub up and being able to utilize it in many different directions, offering this technology to makers in the city as well, who don't have like a good way to lower their own waste in packaging. So I just see a lot of different opportunity there. And then as far as, if you could explain the question a little bit more as far as—
Yeah, so a question about like permitting and licensing fees, like if you expect to see the fees you're facing now like for perpetuity, or if you think those might level off in the near future, and understand if you don't have the answers that now.
I think that just exists for all small businesses, for example, like that's what I'm experiencing. So I don't change. It's just there have been some hurdles. Small businesses, not really easy for small businesses to just get off their feet by themselves without investment money. I, for example, carry another job to support this, and this has kind of just become my personal, I'm kind of like volunteering, for example, for the environment. And of course I'm hoping it will be a profitable venture in the future, but that's not my main goal. You know, if I needed to, I would continue to support it myself with other work. But yeah, they're not impossible costs. They're just things that all small businesses have to handle.
Great.
Understand.
Yeah, thank you. And that sort of leads into the next question, which is for all four of you. The question is, what is your biggest revenue stream? But I might add on to that to say, or what do you hope will be your biggest revenue stream in the future as your business is building? So are there any volunteers to take that first? If not, I'll pick on someone.
I'm happy to go
for it.
first. Ours is pretty straightforward. We're a nonprofit, so we are not a business. We're not organized for profits. There will be no return on investment from us, but we do make a lot of happy people in our community. Our main source of revenue is our membership fees. People do pay a fee to join and use the tool library, although our membership fees are completely pay what you can. So as close to free as possible, people pay what they can. We do have people pay $0 and they get this exact same access, super equitable. We do have people who have the means and they pay $350 to use our tools. And it averages out and does sustain us. So we're completely sustainable as we are, but we'd love to grow. And so our hope is that we are not putting the financial burden of our growth on our users, and that we are able to find funding from donors, from the city, from granting entities, and that we're able to find like larger investment in this model to help people. And maybe even our services could be free to everyone someday, but right now we're almost free, and that is where most of our money comes from.
Thank you. Go ahead, Breck.
Okay. So yeah, hoping for some revenue. So we're currently we're pre-revenue, so we're not making anything right now. As we're continuing to develop our software and our technology and everything. I mean, we do hope to, be able to use and sell all the saved energy that we're going to be doing back into the market. So that's part of the kind of business model, if you will. Also, we're focusing on hourly pricing right now with residential electricity consumers in Northern Illinois, right? But we do want to move beyond that and to help people who maybe are not even on hourly pricing or dynamic rate structure programs, even just to show them how they can, reduce their carbon footprint through how they use electricity and when they use it. We also want to be able to move on to sell our software as a service to different utility companies in different places. So a next kind of step for that, for example, would be say like a Naperville, which is a municipal electricity utility rather, where maybe an adoption of a dynamic rate structure would be challenging. However, our software could be used to help their consumers use more efficiently and to help with energy efficiency programs.
Got it, thank you. Vanessa, I think you're off mute.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll kind of echo what Tessa said. Sorry. So this is a nonprofit. Of course, we could charge a consulting fee because a lot of it is kind of consulting and outreach. Like I will go to a site and I know the technical details enough to determine if this is going to be an over 5,000 or over 2,000 install or less than 5,000 install. And we could also be, I could charge a slight amount that maybe covers another person that also does this outreach. It's something that's definitely doable remote. We did it all over COVID. And then of course, another revenue source or like a fundraising source could be partnership fees, where if we refer a contractor in our network who agrees to, do an affordable price until we have the prevailing wage requirements for the 80% reimbursement, they could, maybe pay us a $40 referral fee. Same with the software, the Airbnb of EV charging, EV match. But it's word of mouth, and there's a lot of eager and excited hosts with great buildings for EV charging that are almost EV ready. And it was really awesome. I actually teamed up with a group of college students from UAC who, like, they were just like, oh my gosh, we got to go 501c3. Like, I will volunteer at this. Like, just being the local neighborhood, like, EV resource. There's a huge knowledge barrier and a lot of myths out there too. So, you know, I don't think there would be a lot that would be needed to sustain to fund the EV chargers. If we have a 501c3, of course, we could do direct donations and fundraising. That's kind of what we were thinking of going to, or having a fiscal sponsor. But, you know, applying to grants, like, we stretched that healing curve grant a lot. And we did like a rough estimate with our survey results. You could build more than 10 EV charging sites in Chicago, you know, charging deserts, like less than, or no EV charging for over 1.5 miles in Chicago for less than $100,000. So, you know, this model of EV charging where it's privately owned, publicly rented, with hosts that are committed to keeping it at a close to residential rate so that they're just reimbursed. They know that there's potential for revenue generation on their end when we see more demand and more EVs adopted. But again, like, there's a lot of small commercial sites out there in neighborhoods that are just want to be the amenity for the neighborhood and want to drive local EV adoption awareness and even EV shared use mobility and climate awareness, of course. So anyway, that's, yeah, revenue is nonprofit. So
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Christine.
The revenue stream at Tinyshop, I'm coming out with, we're gonna come out with the transparent pricing model very soon publicly, which basically says all of our products are just marked up 25 to 30%. It's pretty standard in grocery. So it's not really, the revenue stream's pretty consistent in that sense. I would say the things that we can mark up a little bit more, which we have to, is the home and hygiene products. Those products that I actually can't decide how much I price them. It's it's their, like, a company's retail standard price. So but for the things that I can choose, I'm only marking it up so much just to sustain the company and just for that nominal growth in order to expand products. It's really not the mission to, you know, have this boutique grocer. I really do want the products to be accessible for people.
That's great, thank you. And I appreciate that all four of you have a component of equity built into your revenue streams, which is another part of this competition. It's sustainable in many ways.
Definitely.
I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So do you want to do another question for the whole group, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Let's talk challenges. So for each of you, what is your biggest barrier to the impact that you and your organization want to make in Chicago, and maybe more broadly to the Midwest or to the country, to the world, in regard to what you're trying to solve here? So again, if one of you wants to begin, you're welcome to volunteer.
I'll start. The biggest barrier for Tinyshop, I think, is just the pushback pretty much with every single new supplier I talk to. The systems that I'm trying to create just don't exist. And a lot of people don't understand why, for example, I'm looking for products without waste at all. So I feel like it's just one barrier after the next. And it's trying to convince people, educate people. And I feel like every single move in that direction, every single person I talk to about these things, it kind of just shifts people's mentalities just a little bit. And I think that that's like the larger, whether or not I use them as a supplier, I feel like it's kind of planting that seed kind of in the culture and in the community.
Yeah, completely. Breck, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say for Qilo, some of the biggest challenges, barriers for us would be, since we're dealing with electricity, which is something that everyone uses, and like it's kind of a thing that people don't really think about. and really what we're trying to tackle is a number of different things. So it's kind of a multi-pronged challenge in some ways. It is facing that barrier of informing people about how electricity kind of works, how electric grids work at a very fundamental, basic level, and how they can have an impact. I don't think people really realize. I certainly didn't actually, until I, with my fellow co-founder, Dave, who's the electrical engineer of the group, I really learned from him that, the times of day that you use electricity actually matter. If you're using electricity at times of high demand, that means that, power plants are pulling from fossil fuels. Just even that simple thing, it's just like, oh yeah. And when you think about it, of course that makes sense. But there's those kind of educational elements. There's just also kind of spreading into, utility companies and things are not like the most open, progressive, institutions we have in this country. So, in trying to improve different kind of systems and things like that, these are very real challenges that we face. But, we're trying to get that message down as clean and clear as possible. And we're also, trying to seek funding from, the federal government because of our technical innovation, the benefits that it would have on electric grids and infrastructure and everything else. So this new legislation coming out of Illinois and even at a federal level, Vanessa's talking about like not waiting. We're certainly not waiting either. With bated breath, hopefully some of these things will actually happen. There'll be more opportunities and support for us, but those are very real challenges.
Definitely hear you about those electric companies and love to see any more transparency you can bring to consumers. So I'm excited about what's to come.
Tessa. I'm happy to talk about our biggest barriers. Honestly, like I hinted at earlier, we're kind of bursting at the seams with community interest, with members, with people want to donate their things. I saw a couple of questions in the Q&A where people are like, where can I donate my tools? Like, we wish you could bring them to us, but we really need more space and we need more investment. So really for us, our biggest barriers are just space and money. And if given a little bit more real estate in Chicago, which there's ample, it's just about making the right connections and paying some amazing staff members so we can kind of have consistent, welcoming individuals like to help people with their projects. That's really all we need because we have more than enough tools. We have more than enough excitement. We have tons of members and users. So we're really, really close to being, a really big presence in Chicago. We just need a little bit of financial support and honestly, a little bit more physical square footage.
Well, thanks for sharing. I'm sure a lot of us wouldn't have thought that. So that's great to know how we can support moving forward. And then last but not least, Vanessa.
Yeah, I'll say, I think that education barrier, like Breck was saying, is definitely there. A lot of sites that we've spoken with, at first it's like, oh, so I'll make money from this. It's like Airbnb. And we're like, no, this is actually, you might not have any EVs come visit your site for 3 months after we build it. There is an adoption curve that a lot of studies have shown and policy coming out and makes and models of different cars are coming out that there is going to be demand. And so I think communicating that and then coming across of like, we're not selling you this, we're offering you a grant to have this and offer it and not make money from it for a few years. And then eventually, and basically recover your electricity costs and then eventually mark it up 10%. It will add value to your site. When we were talking to like small businesses or even multifamily buildings that have been interested, like, it will attract people to come shop at your business, or it'll promote your image, and people will know about, it'll even like increase the image of the neighborhood locally. But I think communicating that, and also a lot of people, not understanding what a massive role in climate change that transportation has and passenger vehicles alone. And that, you know, no, we're not advocating for everyone drop what they're doing and buy an electric car. Like EV ownership is not for everyone, just how charger ownership is not for everyone. But there are so many low-hanging fruit. There's so much low-hanging fruit of people who are ready to switch to electric if they could have that range anxiety relieved. And I won't go into all the benefits of, you know, how it benefits people in cost savings and all that too. So I think just when you know, not just when we did the survey research, that was easy. It was like, okay, I'll check off these things. But when it comes to approaching people and kind of selling them to just be one of our hosts, there's definitely a lot that kind of needs to go into teaching it and being like, if you have a car come charge just in the first week that it's built, like that's amazing. And then like, yeah, like ComEd asked me the other day, do you have like a report of statistics of how people using it? And I was like, no, we just built these a few months ago, and like word is going to get out. But the first one that we built, after 6 months, it has people using it every day. So I think a lot of us are like, there's so much like projected growth, and with the Illinois CEJA passage, like we're going to see this. And but people are still uncomfortable with the like, when are they going to come charge here part? And then once someone does come charge, they're ecstatic and they text me and they're like hiding in the bushes like, oh my God, a plug-in Jeep just came. I'm so excited. They're back. So, and you see this, like, it's a fun way also, like the hosts have fun with it too. So at first kind of like understanding like, this is a community amenity. This is not going to make you money. You are recovering your costs though. The grid is everywhere and your building just happens to be a great retrofit. Like, are you in? And then once they, unless they already have some understanding of the role of EV in climate and city adaptation, it takes a little bit of time and energy. So that's why I think when I was talking about like revenue, it would be great if when we do this outreach, it does take a lot of time and coordination, and having, you know, whether it's more people like me who are doing this outreach to produce some like educational materials that are very formalized, that could be very helpful.
Yeah, it actually seems like a common theme across the board is just the educational component of educating users why this is like the magnitude of the problem, why it's needed, and then the impact you're having. So
right, for all of you too.
That,
yeah, and that's why we're not just building chargers, we're tying in the local outreach and education with that CBO, with that host. So it's coming from them too.
Yeah, I think you're all doing incredible work to address these challenges. So, and my hope is that the audience that's listening will be your advocates and help spread the educational and informational component. But we only have a few minutes left, so I think what we'll end with is a question that any of you can weigh in on. But is there anything that you would have added to your pitch that you didn't, or anything? Yep, and anything else you want the audience to know or take away that wasn't covered in your video?
I mean, with such fantastic pitches, there might be nothing. We get it.
Yeah, you can say it was perfect and you nailed it.
Go ahead, Breck. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I like to think that we nailed it, but you know, there's the kind of stuff that we're doing. There's a lot to kind of talk about and explain. I think maybe something that there wasn't space enough for to kind of talk about is really how we're developing the software, the technology itself, and the components of it. So something that we're doing is really pulling from, we're talking like huge data sets. So we, and a lot of which is publicly available, maybe even more so than people realize. And so I'm talking about ComEd data down to individual, not, I mean, this is anonymous data, mind you, but down to individual residential consumer data that we've analyzed. We're talking about census data. We're talking about Environmental Information Act data. We're talking about a lot of different kinds of sets of data. And so what we're doing is taking that, and what we're going to do, and what this grant will help us to do, would be to continue to build that software where we start creating individual consumer or energy consumer profiles, and then we're going to be creating clustering models and using machine learning to kind of group people who are using electricity similarly, or live in similar households, live in similar areas, and show other people how they can use electricity more efficiently. So that kind of those kind of components haven't really been done, not only in Illinois or the Midwest, but the US period. And so there was an earlier question about competition. There is some indirect players out there within the US, but where this is really happening is in Europe. And so a direct competitor that we do have is based in the UK, and they're entering into the US market now. So this is really an opportunity to really make headway and like in Illinois and the Midwest, to really empower people with electricity decisions, with technology that's like right there on the table, but it's not being connected, it's not being made available to people.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think Tessa, you had your hand up.
Yeah. So I guess one thing that maybe was communicated, but since I went first, like, an hour plus ago, is just sort of reminding people of the scale of what the Chicago Tool Library is already doing. Like, we are already serving people in over 90% of Chicago zip codes, and we're directly responding to what their needs are and adapting. So the possibilities for adaptation for what the Chicago Tool Library does are amazing. And we are providing people, tortilla presses and camping equipment, but also, things for gardening and disaster preparedness, for, pumps for flooded basements and generators and all kinds of really wonderful things that we will continue to adapt and respond to what the needs of our community are. And we just have already this really incredibly active, diverse membership base that we will hopefully continue to grow and expand over time. So I just hope that was communicated through our presentation, but we already have this really incredibly active community, and this grant would do a lot to help serve them. So that's reinforcing a point.
Thanks very much. Vanessa or Christine, I saw you go off mute.
Yeah, the only big thing that I feel like we missed about Tinyshop is I'm not interested in only servicing Logan Square. I'm currently doing pop-ups all over the city, and we'll have different pickup locations as far north as Evanston, west as Oak Park, and south as Hyde Park, hopefully. Right now, I'm in back of the yards quite often as well. I think the south side doesn't really get as many opportunities for zero waste and these sustainable options. So yeah, just that outreach will still exist, even though the hub will be in Logan Square. There'll be these little pop-up locations, these satellite locations where you can do pickups too.
Great, thank you. And we'll close with Vanessa.
Cool. Yeah, I guess I just want to say, the chargers are also a way to, the landscape with policy right now is really exciting. And so just the fact that we've built these, actually there's 5 of them now, community chargers in these neighborhoods at this cost, with these hosts, parent education, it's a way to not just provide charging to multifamily housing, or other EV drivers as they zip around the city, but it's also a way to reach a lot of communities that are not being reached, who could actually benefit the most from electrification. So like I said, on that map, where are the EV chargers? Where's Volta building their chargers? It's at the Whole Foods in Lincoln Park. It's at maybe the Jewel Osco in Skokie or something. But having this like local community owned thing and tied with the community doing the education about it, in the right language, providing where you can meet a neighbor who will let you see the vehicle, how it works, what dealers actually know how to sell you an EV, as well as awareness of these new policies, of the policy and the incentives that are going to come out. So I just wanted to say the chargers are important for EV charging, but also an awareness opportunity for a community that through word of mouth will get there. And we have seen an exponential rise over time of usage of the charger, and also people saying that they've been test driving EVs and are thinking of getting an EV now because they have a charger near their home. So it can have a pretty cool impact in that way as well with the partnership approach with the host.
Thank you so much. And we are at time, so thank you to all 4 of our finalists. Your ideas are incredible, and we're excited to watch your businesses grow over time. And
yeah, this was such an inspiring evening of pitches, and it was so fun to be a part of this conversation. So to everybody watching, remember to vote for your finalists, your favorite finalists, and to everybody who spoke tonight, best of luck and thank you so much again.